the air was cold and clean, and I just was able to sit near some trees and just an hour and a half, just not bash on myself of like, you must make use of this moment or anything, just allowing my system to calm down. And it was just wonderful. But that's it. Every step I took back towards home, it's like kids are yelling and kids are playing and loud noises and more hullabaloo and
Yeah.
smells. And
Seems
it's
to
like
undo it.
it undoes it. And I feel like my system is like this delicate system that needs like perfect, like clean, pristine air and quiet and non-threatening
Yeah.
anything and no
Yeah.
noise. And I'm like, that's it. I can't be happy. Like I can't,
Yeah. I
not that
get
I
that.
can't be
Yeah.
happy. It's my system just won't calm
Yeah.
down.
Yeah. Yeah. So
And
sensitive to everything. Yeah. So when you were sitting in the park, sitting there, what were the words you used? You were not making yourself, not telling yourself, but you were allowing calming.
my system to calm down. Yeah.
You're allowing your system to calm down. Can you remember what that felt like?
Not really. In other
Right.
words, I can't, my
Yeah,
system
yeah,
is
that's
so
fine.
worked
Yeah.
up the last 2 days that it's like, I know it was good and I know it's the absence of what's going on now.
Right. Yeah. So this is a really potentially valuable technique for you, a skill to develop. And that is that next time you're in a situation where that's happening, see if you can anchor what the feeling is, where the feeling is, what it feels like to allow that calming process to happen. See, the thing is, if you anchor it, if you make a if you have a strategy that says, what does it feel like? Where am I feeling it? And get into those feelings at a subtle, distinctive, definable level, right? Not necessarily using words, or even better if you don't use words, but really anchoring the experience of that happening. What will happen is, in a moment like this, you'll be able to recall it, and that will actually recreate it. Do you follow what I'm saying?
I guess my question is always, what are the limits mind over matter? In other words, it's not like I can just recall what it feels like to eat and then I don't need to eat. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, the main reason that we can't recall that stuff is because we don't anchor it. We don't put it into memory. So what I'm saying is, and I keep telling you, don't do doing stuff, but at the same time, this is a doing, and it's something that you can develop the skill of. So really what you're doing is allowing this conversation to bring up another thought that says, pay attention to what's happening. That's all. And you will or you won't. That's so there's no real doing involved, but I put it in terms of doing, saying, try and remember to do that. Next time you're sitting and you're allowing it to happen. See it, it's a magical thing that you're doing. You're allowing it to happen. You're not making yourself, you're not pushing yourself, you're simply allowing your nervous system to let go of something, to be more relaxed, to be more free, be more contented or calm or equanimous. You're allowing that. And that's an amazing thing when you get into it, and extremely powerful if you can lock it in. Now again, I don't take that literally, but you know what I mean. Lock it in. Just anchor it so that you've got access to it at another time. And by doing that, what all you're doing is you're reminding yourself, oh, this is what this feels like. Well, you know it's happening, you know it's good, but you're not making an effort to specify what the feeling is. And by doing that, let's see what happens if you do that. Can you take that with you as homework?
So how do I lock it in, as you say?
You focus intensely on what the sensations are as that's happening. Where are they? What do they feel like? Now, recognize that when you start, you're going to say, oh, I feel it here, and you might label a part of your body and it feels like this, and you might label it as something. But what you do is you stay with it until here isn't something you're aware of at a level of labels. You are not going to say, oh, it's the chest or the stomach or the shoulders or whatever. You're going to say, oh, I'm just experiencing it, and then your mind goes to where the sensation is. I'd say there's no label. The best label, the only label you can come up with is here. It's here, right? And then what does it feel like? And so in the beginning, you might go, oh yeah, it feels kind of light, or however you might describe it, and then keep going until you can only say, and it feels like this, and you can't actually put it into words to tell anybody else what it feels like. Now, at that level, right, you're really honed in on it. You're really, really, really focused on what's actually going on, and that will write it into memory.
Yeah.
Play with it. Let's not try and understand it. Let's just play with that experience as a possibility and see what happens.
I
So
I think I know what you mean, but sorry, what were you saying?
oh yeah, go on, you go.
It's more like, to me, it's the absence of what I have now, which is I wake up completely. I was a lot easier
Yeah,
for
I get it. Yeah,
days.
yeah,
And now I'm waking up like this and my whole body's contracted and there's pain and buzzing and urgency. So it's the lack of that. You know what I mean?
yeah. But is it? I mean, it certainly could be a way you describe it. And when you've got these things, they are so tangible. This current thing that you're talking about, it is so tangible that it makes the other seem really ephemeral, right? And it is ephemeral. It is very um, subtle. It's intangible, right? But it is there. And what I'm saying is by putting the focus on it, you'll make it more tangible. And so when the time comes that you're feeling what you're feeling now, if you've got that in memory, what it feels like and where you felt it, right, you'll only have to think about it to recreate it. It'll come back, and that will drive out what you've got now. So then that kind of makes a lie of the way you're describing it now, that is the absence of this. It just seems like that. It's not. You might say, this is the absence of that. That doesn't quite make the same sense, does it? Because this is so tangible. But this does cover up that, doesn't it? It drives it out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in both cases, neither are a thing, neither are something that you can bottle. You're not going to find it. You can't, whatever. You might talk about characteristics of it, or you might even talk about some physical characteristics of it, like what hormones are coursing through your body. So in this case, you've got stress hormones coursing through your body. And when you're feeling like you were feeling in the park, they're different hormones. It's more like, oxytocin or well, variations of different hormones. But so we're not worried, but that's just theory. That's just story for us because we're not measuring something, right? But we do know about the feelings, don't we?
Yeah.
So we can refer to the feelings as things, whilst we know at the same time that they're not actual things. They're a response. They're a happening. They're movement in progress. They're whatever. But again, let's not get lost in that one because we get into philosophy then. What we're talking about is an actual experience. So how, like we've been just talking for a couple of minutes, have what you were feeling when you first logged onto this meeting and what you're feeling now, are they different in any way?
Yes. Yes.
So what happens? We don't know, do we?
Rinse happened. I'm very clear on that.
What that's hilarious. What happened inside? What happens inside you? That's what I'm saying. We can't really define it, can we? What happened inside you is something changed. That's about as close as we can get to it.
Hmm.
But the fact that something changed shows you that you can do it. Now, let's put it this way. This is, I mean, I love to take credit, but I'm not going to. You 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 react to this meeting and to me and to what's something. You react in a certain way. That's all you. That's all in you. Right? I could show you a movie of a wonderful seaside view or a park view, nice trees moving softly in the wind, and you would have a response to that as well, wouldn't you? It's in you. It's your interpretation that actually causes the change in you. It's got nothing to do with what's outside of you. Right? If my wife was sitting beside me, she wouldn't have that change. She'd be going, "Oh, get on with it. You're being boring. Come on." So, do you get what I'm saying? Do you believe me that it's in you? Something changed in you.
I hear it, but the thing is that if we are not the doer and we don't program our, like, if my conditioning is that certain things contract me and certain things expand me, then I need perfect conditions. I need either to talk with Vince or to go to the forest. Like, I need the weather to be a certain way. I need no noise, no pollution. It seems like my system needs so much to calm down, and it doesn't seem like I get to decide that.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get this one out of the road, or if we can, or let's be really clear about this. Those conditions don't do it directly to you. It is your response to them. It is what's in you that interprets them in a particular way that has that then generates a response that has whatever effect it has. So again, I recognize that they're probably just words to you, but I want you to consider if that's actually what happens. Right? It's shortcut. It's a shortcut to say that does this to me. Now, sure, at a certain level, at a certain perspective, we can say that does this to me, and it works if we're communicating things, right? But if we're to say my interpretation of that has this effect in this body, that would be way more accurate. And it's
So
kind of
where are
saying
the
the same thing, but it's coming from a different place. Do you get that? Sorry, go on, you go.
No, I hear you. You're saying that it goes through a processing of I have to give it meaning and then I respond
Yeah,
or something
absolutely.
like that.
Yes, yeah, and you got it. That's a big one that you got,
But
right? That
but the
meaning you
thing
give it is what you respond to.
I guess where does that turn into fantastical or magical thinking of like Joe Dispenza, The Secret, just vibrate at the frequency you want and you can always be where you want. And where does
Yeah,
it,
yeah, yeah. I
I
get,
don't need
yeah,
to have people, I don't need to eat, I don't need to have a job because I can just imagine that I'm in the forest. Like, where does that correspond with? But we actually do
yeah.
need physical
Okay,
things.
yeah,
Or if someone hits you over the head, you're going to bleed. It's not an interpretation. Like, I don't know. Where's the
yeah.
limits of it?
Well, I don't know. I can't. I
Yeah.
can't give you
Yeah.
a
Yeah. Yeah.
definitive answer, right? So, look, magical thinking does have a place. Magical thinking. Now, what is magical thinking? So, there's magical thinking that has a chance of actually having an effect, and then there's magical thinking that is ridiculous. Like no matter how much you imagine it, you're never going to be able to fly, are you? Or walk on water, or turn water into wine. You're never going to do any of those things. That's magical thinking to an absurd level, right? But
I'm not sure, Vince. There are those people that do experiments with water, and if you like bless it or you play like rock music and curse it, then it responds differently, the molecules. So you
yeah,
never
yeah,
know.
I get that. Yeah, I've seen that Japanese man that did all of that stuff with water for sure. Yeah, look, and I've played with that myself at one stage a long time ago. Um, but yeah, so all right. So what I'm saying is, there gets to be a very blurry point when it comes to that, right?
Yeah.
And yet I know that I had polyps and then I didn't have polyps, and what happened in between might be considered to be magical thinking by some. Right?
Hmm.
But I don't know what the actual thing was that happened. So I mean, I always laugh when people say, "Oh, it's a placebo effect." Well, I think placebo effect is fantastic. I'm choking on that one. Placebo effect is fantastic. I love it. And there's been
Hmm.
experiments that show that people who take a placebo, even if they know it's a placebo, it will still have an effect.
Wow.
So there's a lot of stuff goes on there. There was a basketball team, an American basketball team that did an experiment, and this goes back many years now, and they divided the team in half, and half the team were told to practice 10 minutes a day throwing hoops from halfway back along the court or somewhere like that. I don't remember the exact detail. And the other half of the team were to sit on the bench on the sideline for 10 minutes and imagine themselves doing it. And they did it for, I don't remember how long, a significant amount of time. And then they tested them. And the ones who were throwing the hoops physically, they'd improved. Again, the figures I'm not exactly, I don't remember the exact one, but it was something like they improved 10% on the way they were before they started that 10-minute a day practice that. And then the ones that were sitting on the sideline, they'd improved 30%. And they never threw a
What?
single ball, yeah, because they were just imagining it. Well, it sounds fantastic until you think, well, guess what? The ones who are actually throwing the ball, they missed sometimes. The ones who were imagining it never missed,
Hmm.
right? Now, the brain doesn't know the difference between what you imagine and what actually happens. We know that from biology. You can imagine stuff and the brain will respond to it as if it were actually happening. So this is a really grey area. We just don't know. So I would never
Hmm.
downplay anything that is psychological or magical thinking. At the same time, let's be realistic. You're not going to be able to manifest a pink elephant no matter how much you sit there and think it.
Yeah.
And I've never
And I
won
guess,
the lottery, and I, for the life of me, I can't fucking lose this last couple of kilos that I want to lose, and I've tried and tried and tried. So,
mm,
I could get rid of me polyps, but I can't lose weight. How ridiculous is that? What's going on? I don't know. I have no idea. Yeah. So I can imagine all sorts of possibilities that were involved. The polyps was obviously a life-changing situation. Well, the
yeah,
weight
I would
is too,
think
I
the same.
guess, but yeah, yeah, it's a tricky one.
Yeah, it's like when our
So,
body knows
so
that it's dangerous, we can pull up more like focus or
yeah,
effort or
yeah, yeah, that's right. So what I say is, don't question yourself with the idea of where is it magical thinking and where is it not. If the idea comes up to you to do some magical thinking, then do it. Absolutely fine. But don't have expectations about outcome. Wait and see what the outcome will be. Because the
yeah, it's
problem
like
with a lot of
where
magical thinking is that we expect an outcome, and when it doesn't happen, we kind of go, "Oh, well, that didn't work." Well, maybe, who knows why? Yeah.
yeah, it's it's like what basket to put your eggs in, like where to put your efforts, and that's always a question of mine. Like in other words, like now my I was in a flare from June to January, and then it got so bad that I went to a doctor to check it out, and they recommended starting the medications, and I've been fighting to not have to go on it for 8 years. And I already felt the tide turning because December, January, it started to get cold and rainy and fresh, and I saw different symptoms healing, and I knew I could do it. And I was like, I'll calm down a little bit more. I'll do what I can a little bit more. Right now, it's mostly calming down. Before, it was changing my food. And I just got back some test results. I did test results now again 2 months later, and again trying to suss out the best day to do the blood test. When am I the calmest? When is my system calmest so the results will come out good? I try to like anyway. I got back results 2 days ago. One result and one result yesterday. So 2 days ago, my inflammation was of my body was the lowest it's been in several years and totally within normal range. So I was like, yes, it's working. Whatever. I'm going to the forest. I'm calming down. Like all my little efforts are working. But then yesterday came in the gut inflammation marker and it was double what it was. And it's like
Mm.
in the stratosphere. And I'm like, ugh. So, there are possibilities. It could just be a fluctuation. It could be that I had some kind of infection. It's sensitive to all
Yeah,
kinds of
lots
things,
lots of possibilities. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
but also possibility that it's never healing and that even when I feel better in my body, the gut is still inflamed for 8 years and maybe I should do something about it. So it's hard to yeah, so right now I'm kind of at that crossroads of if I should, go and take some medicine and see how that affects things. But
yeah.
just
Well, so
really
this is my attitude towards that. In my personal life, that's what happens. Um, I've had over I don't know, well over a 12-month period. I was before that, I was having polyps taken out of my esophagus on a regular basis. Polyps that were precancerous. They had some had high grade dysplasia and some were just totally benign. But essentially, they took these polyps out every 3 months or so. They were taking more out, and in the end, they said, "No, we can't take any more out. I mean, we want you to have this radio frequency ablation," which meant I had to go. I had to go to Sydney, which was a 3 hour trip from here to go to
mm,
Sydney and have this ablation and have it on every 6 weeks or every 12 weeks. It was every 6 weeks. Um, so I went and had all of those things, and then he's saying that's pretty good. We've got rid of all of that Barrett's esophagus. It's in a fairly good nick now. Um, and so we don't need you to have another endoscopy until whatever. And I'm due to have it in about 3 or 4 weeks or something. Anyway, he said, but I want you to keep taking this what do they call it? A proton pump inhibitor, right? Which, in
Hmm.
other words, which keeps the acid levels in my stomach down. Because I've got a hiatus hernia, and I've had one all my life, it seemed, and that allowed acid to come up into the esophagus. So I'm taking these pills to keep it down. Now he had me on one in the morning and one in the evening, and I've cut it back to just the evening one, and everything seems to be pretty good. We'll see what it's like when I go and have my next one. But should I say, well, I can do this. I'll sit there and meditate every day
Hmm.
and keep the
Hmm.
level of
Yeah.
acid in my stomach down. Yeah, maybe I could do that. Maybe I wouldn't know until I went and had the next check whether I was successful or not. So guess what? I don't have any obvious negative effects from taking that tablet. So I take it,
Hmm.
you know. So what I'm saying is, I also believe in natural healing and I even practiced naturopathy for a while about nearly 30 years ago now, but I did. So I'm really up on well, I'm not so much these days, but I was up on all herbal stuff and herbal remedies and good eating and natural eating and all of that kind of stuff. I did a lot of that. Um, and I still watch what I eat. I don't eat too much rubbish, mainly because my wife doesn't let me, but it's true, I don't. Um, so I don't have dessert every night. I don't eat much ice cream. Um, but I did go to the movies today, and I did have an ice cream at the movies. So that happens. So it's all a balance thing, is what I'm saying. Right? So your natural control stuff, but also let the pills do what they can do and see how they go and see what your effect is on them. If you don't have negative effects, don't not take them on some principle. Don't take them if they have a negative effect on you.
Yeah, it's not so much principle, it's more fear that that'll start a whole downward spiral of my body because now I'm adding horrible things that can suppress your immune, like all kinds of stuff that maybe it'll be worse than not doing it. It's like it's a gamble with your life, you know what I mean? It's like, what if this starts me on a slippery slope of like just needing more and more medication and then ending up sicker
Yeah.
and sick. So it's scary.
But then you can say by not treating it, you're gambling with your life too.
Right. And I don't know which is the bigger gamble because I kind of want to take it
Yeah.
to the nth degree, the magical thinking type thing. Like if I just, maybe if I wake up or maybe if I calm my system more and more and find a way to calm down, like, but
No. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Use that stuff as well, but not exclusively.
hmm.
Believe me, when you wake up, you're not immune from getting ill. You're certainly not likely to cause the kind of illness that comes from stress, but at the same time, you'll still be affected by things that affect you. Your immune system might be stronger as a result of being more relaxed. So, there's elements on both sides of it all, but you're certainly not going to be able to walk on water. That's for sure. So the fact that you recognize what you call magical thinking as having some effect, I see that as good. That's a really good thing. Do it. Be calm, be meditative, have good fantasies about your health.
It's just that right now, when I have that hour and a half where I'm, sitting at the trees and getting less triggered because there's less free dogs, because there's less people, because there's less noise, because the air is cleaner, it's like, if I'm able to be in that state more, that's like my fantasy of like, or my dream of being able to man
Hmm.
work out my life. That's where I'm always in this urgent state of like, should I move to Switzerland and live in a chalet in some hill? Like trying to figure out what
Yeah,
environment I
yeah, I
need,
get
what
it. Yeah.
balance I need to remain in a calm state in my system. Because now, with the noise pollution, with the air pollution, with constantly running and jackhammers, all kinds of things like this with whatever my life is now. I'm at a higher state of activation. And I'm like,
Yeah, yeah,
it's all this balance of how much am I willing to sacrifice or move or
yeah,
change,
yeah.
and
So
create different environment that might be able to heal me completely. And I don't know, Heidi and all of this, but
yeah. So what I heard you say a minute ago was, again, you're insisting that it's those external environments that cause you to be in a certain state, to have a certain experience. And I keep saying to you, it's not those things themselves, it's the way you relate to them that does it. Now, if I was right, if you were to believe me, can you see that that puts some kind of insulation between you and those events?
are
You
you
can
saying that there's no reaction to environment? It's all conditioning? Like I can
no,
be as
no, I'm
stalwart
not
as
saying
someone
that.
who is not sensitive?
No, I'm not saying that at all. But I am saying that it is your interpretation that defines the reaction to it. Of course, if you get somebody makes a loud noise in your ear, you're gonna get us have a startle response, right? That's first arrow stuff. But the moment you say, that's horrible, I wish it would stop, I wish it wouldn't happen, that's second arrow stuff.
But you also said that it's not like you don't get sick when you have awakening because your body still responds to things. So if
Yeah, but
my
we're
body
talking about
responds
responding
to
to
noise and
viruses.
I don't know. To me, it's just as actual how my body responds to noise or pollution. Um,
Yeah, but you must admit that you've got yourself into a pretty that you have a hypersensitive. You know, you're very, very sensitive to those things, and you're very quick to respond. Is that true?
I was gonna say yes, yes, absolutely. Except when people come visit me, they say sometimes, I don't know how you live here. I couldn't live like that. So there's both sides. I feel like I'm
Yeah,
very
yeah,
sensitive.
no,
On the
that
other
well,
hand, I
that's
tolerate a lot more crap than people do. So
it's not a different story. No, I mean they may be right. You know, you may be living in a situation that would be better if it were different. So then you're going to agonize about moving on and work yourself
yeah,
up into another unhappy, unpleasant state? Or do you just go, oh, what do I do? I either make a choice to move or I don't.
yeah, yeah.
And if you bring it back to the now, you can say, right now, I'm not going to move. I'm not going to do anything about moving today. And therefore, I'm not going to think about it again until tomorrow. And then tomorrow you can say, now, right now, today, am I going to go looking for another place today? Am I going to do something about moving today? No, I haven't got time. I haven't got the inclination. I haven't whatever. I'm not going to. No, not today. Right, then put it out of your mind until tomorrow. And then tomorrow you can say, well, right now, am I going to do it? Right? And then you might say, well, I haven't done it for the last 3 days. Maybe I won't do it for another week. So put it out of your mind again for a whole week. Do you see what I'm saying? Get into the now every time rather than in the future.
Really practical and brilliant because what I do is absolutely ridiculous, but it's what I do, and it is to hold all of the possibilities and then just be frantic and urgent and swirling with all of the options. But should I say, but if I don't, but maybe I could save my life, but I can't really move away because I need my family. Like it's just feeling like
Yeah.
everything is possible and no other option will be better, and yet still holding a fantasy that other options might be better because it could be. And if I just had the courage or a different personality or more strength, I could actually move. But no, I'm too much of a scaredy cat and
Yeah,
I need
yeah.
other
All of
people and
that.
I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah.
all of it.
I get that.
So
Yeah. So, but see, you maybe you imagine that you've got to move a long way away to get away from all of that. When in fact, two buildings away from you, there's a basement place up for rent. And if you get into that basement place, you're insulated from all that noise and you don't hear it.
yeah,
You can come up with a million different possibilities. So
yeah,
again, you're not open to those when you only think of, oh, I've got to move out into the country somewhere or whatever, to get
hmm,
away from those situations. But there's an old saying that I just think is so brilliant, and that is wherever you go, there you are. And so you
yeah.
can move to the most idyllic place and you'll still find things that'll annoy you or
It's
stress
really,
you.
really true.
Mm.
That's really true. That's why I get hopeless. I'm like, oh my gosh, I should move to Switzerland to some chalet. And then I'm like, no, then I'll be scared when I'm there alone at night, or there'll be a stray bear or whatever. And I know there's no bears in Switzerland, whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. Yeah, there's always something. Yeah,
So then it seems hopeless. But
yeah. So what your current circumstances are is what you've got to work with.
hmm,
And if you make the most of them, then when you get to somewhere like Switzerland or wherever, you'll appreciate it in a whole different way.
so how do I make the most of it? Just by everything that you were saying, by trying to use my anchors when I can, and
Yeah. And recognize, and this is a kind of a counterintuitive one, but it's a really valuable one. Recognize that whenever you get triggered, that's an opportunity for you to learn how to, I won't say not be triggered, learn how to tap into your inner calm, your equanimity. So it's like a test.
yes, but I'm always failing, Vince.
Well, we learn much more from failures than we do from successes. God, I must be annoying for you sometimes, I'm sure.
What do you mean?
I, I keep coming up with things to counter what you're saying all the time.
Well, good, because if you agree with me, we'd both be hopeless, so that's not good.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just the process is,
It is. That's right. Yeah, and that's why I'm ultimately patient. And it's not that I'm ultimately patient. I'm never impatient. It seems, um, well, I am sometimes. But you know, I'm really happy to be with you as long as it takes, because it does take. Especially when your nervous system is so conditioned. It takes quite a while for it to start settling down. And then once it starts settling down, the next step is to appreciate those good experiences when they happen in order to strengthen them, in order to invite them back to keep them happening. And if we say, well, it was just because there was no noise and the weather's cooler, right? It, it still leaves us helpless. We're still at the mercy of
yeah.
those things when in fact we're
Yeah,
not at the mercy
especially
of them.
that
Yeah.
this week the weather's doubling. It's going to be over 30, and that's just the beginning. They say it's going to be a horrible, really hot summer. So I'm terrified that
Yeah.
I'm going to get
Yeah.
sick and nothing I could do.
Yeah. Well, thanks, climate change skeptics. Well, it's going to be a lot bloody hotter, isn't it?
So you're saying I can mind over matter the weather.
Oh, that's a bit extreme to say mind over matter, but to say certainly it can affect you. You know, I'd certainly appreciate my air conditioners in summer and my heaters in winter. So I'm not saying, I have to tough it out, but frequently we're just going into autumn here, or you might call it fall. Um, and we've just had the first. I actually wore a coat this morning for about an hour because it was cool when I got out of bed. And that's been only the second time this year that I've done that. It's been so hot, but we've had quite a few late 30s. 38 degrees is probably about the hottest that we saw it this summer. That's
Mm.
Celsius. Um, and there are places in Australia that hit 50 degrees this summer.
Oh
That's
my
that's
gosh.
that's a record. Yeah, well, yeah, that's so hot you wouldn't go outside. You'd
Yeah.
you'd basically be having a health crisis within minutes in
Yeah.
that kind of temperature. But
Wow.
a lot of people live under those conditions and they don't have air conditioners. So boy, am I lucky, I think it's I think it's cold when it's 15 degrees and it's hot when it's 30 degrees. So yeah. So no, it's
Yeah,
not
I
not
guess.
mind over matter, but you take measures and you look after yourself. That's it.
Yeah. And it's also, I think it's two things. It's accepting reality of like there are hot and cold days. Well, cold days I don't mind, but there are hot days, and it's hard for me to accept that like the world is not optimized to my system. And then it's hard for me to accept that like I can be at that incredible state. I'll say to my sister, I just had the best day. And she's like, what were you doing? I was like, outside walking or something. And she's like, you know, just because the air is clean, it puts me on a high when the air is clean and cool. I'm
Yeah,
just so
yeah,
happy. And it's so sad to me that when I come back to more, now the heat is starting,
yeah,
whatever, my body is just like swelling and swirling. And it's just so sad that I can't stay in that relaxed state of my body and
yeah,
mind.
yeah, yeah,
I get so sad about it. Like,
yeah, yeah. Well, you're just going into summer, so that doesn't portend well for you, does it?
yeah. And I don't know how to, like, what do I tell myself that that's it? I'm going to go into a flare until next January and then have a month or two of quiet. Like,
Yeah, no. See, you're jumping the gun. You might or might not go into a flare. You might not, but you'll certainly feel hot. But you can feel hot and then and not go into a flare, I presume. It's only if it keeps being that way or if it's extreme um, in either intensity or in duration. If it's extreme, that's certainly much harder to cope with. But you certainly don't need to get into one before it happens by worrying
yeah,
about when it happens, when it will happen, when it
but
might
also,
happen.
yeah, but also, I feel like I know this is silly, but I can't, when I just feel so stupid talking about these things, but these are the reality for me. But when there's even like I live near stores and they spray these chemicals because they think it's nice for people to have chemical sprays. When there's chemical sprays, when there's cooking sprays, when there's a lot of dust in the air, my body clamps down, contracts because it doesn't want to breathe it in deeply. And
Yeah, yeah,
sometimes
I
that
get
is
that.
the
Yeah.
instruction. They say there's too much dust in the air. If you go outside, breathe shallowly. So they do say those things. It's not like but I feel like physically I can't be calm and I can't force my body to open up when the conditions are like that.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
don't know how to counter that. If I'm not relaxed and breathing, then how could I be relaxed? Like, how is it, what can I do in the face of my
Mm.
body not relaxing when there's loud noise, when there's pollution? I can't seem to counteract that contraction. So there's no relaxation. And I don't know. I feel stupid for talking about this, but this is just like,
Yeah, no,
it's
don't,
not.
don't feel stupid. I mean, I get what you're saying. Yeah. And look, if I go outside and there's been a bushfire somewhere and I smell smoke, I find it unpleasant. And if, you know, we had one day this year where it was so thick that I didn't go outside because of it. And the
Mm-hmm.
inside, I didn't have any problems, you know, because the air conditioner filtered it, I suppose. But outside, it was really unpleasant. Now, luckily, I'm lucky in that I haven't developed that level of sensitivity to it where I actually have a physical reaction other than disgust or resistance to it. Whereas you do, you know, so that makes it even harder. But what I'm saying is you just have to do your best to look after yourself. I mean, do
Mm-hmm.
you have air conditioner in your home?
I do.
Yeah. So make sure the filters are clean. That's important, right? And that'll
Mm-hmm.
filter out a lot of the particles. So the particles inside your home, right? And also the humidity will be made lower as a result. Although I don't know what the humidity is like where you are, and maybe it's drier anyway. Um, but if it's humid and hot, that's a lot worse than if it's dry and hot.
Yeah.
So you use your air conditioner. That's it. And I'm lucky. This car I'm sitting in now, it says PM, which are particle something or other. Out 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 inside the car is 6, outside the car is 20. Right? But I
Wow.
have in this car there is a what they call a hepatic filter. So it actually filters out a lot of that pollution. So you can see
Nice.
the difference. Now when I'm outside and I'm in the 20, I don't notice it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't notice
Well,
the
20
difference
is
when
still
I'm
pretty
inside and it's
low.
only 6. What particles
Mm-hmm.
per million, I think it is, or something.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, I
yeah.
keep track of those too, but my body feels the difference. But 20 is still pretty low.
Mm.
I mean, the World Health Organization says it's, several times higher than it should be, but compared to most days here, it's pretty low. But yeah, but 6 is lovely.
Mm.
So I guess just that sorrow that I can't be in that calm space as I am when the environment is better. And I don't know what to tell myself around that. Like, it
Well,
just
I'd
feels,
say remind yourself that a significant amount of your distress comes from worrying about it rather than being in it. So now we're not talking about zero distress. We're not talking about perfect conditions. We're just talking
yeah,
about relative difference.
yeah,
See, it's not, I certainly don't want to come across as arrogant or anything like that, although I don't care if I do in a way, but I don't want to. And that is to say that um, I could probably be in the noisy environment or the polluted environment and not be particularly worried about it. That doesn't mean I wouldn't get out of it as soon as I could, but
hmm
while I'm in it, while I can't get out of it, I'll just I probably don't even think about it other than the initial realization of the state. And especially, if I've got to walk through pollution to get to the bus or the station or whatever, that's the way it is. I've got to do it. So there's no point in worrying about the consequences of it. I'll just do it. Or maybe I don't do it. I'll take a cab instead. But I'm
yeah,
such a tight ass, I'll probably walk and put up with it.
yeah. And just it could be, all those PMs could be pretty high here for days. And
Mm.
so it's like any walk outside, my body's not fully calm. And then I just, I, I think what I'm trying to say is I'm trying to figure out what is second arrow stuff, what is first arrow stuff, what I actually need, how can I be happy and calm, and what I need to get there.
Yeah, yeah.
And
So maybe you could get a face mask that would filter out a lot of that stuff for you.
yeah, on the worst days I wear those, but
Mm. Yeah, there's negatives to wearing them, isn't there? Yeah.
Yeah. I guess maybe it's about just being mature, like you were saying. Like, okay, if you're not going to move today, then don't worry about it today. Like, I do
Yeah.
tend to be very sad a lot of the time that,
Yeah. And that's look, I see quite clearly, at least I imagine quite quite clearly, I imagine definitely that a lot of that is because of your fantasies about how it will be and possible
yeah,
consequences, what it means, stories about what it means. And if you spend your life responding to those, well, you're in fantasy land.
I'm in fantasy land about there must be a better way and a better environment and better things to do with my life, and I'm haven't figured them out and I'm not doing them, and therefore I'm here suffering, and that just makes me really sad that I'm not
Mm,
that there's not better
yeah.
conditions and that I'm not in a better state and that
So
I
isn't
can't
it
figure it
is
out. And
yeah, what comes to mind is, isn't it interesting that I keep telling you about stuff that will improve it and you don't get it? You don't believe me, or you insist on staying with the old stories, or whatever. Now, nothing wrong with that. I'm not criticizing. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, isn't it interesting that you're having such a hard time letting go of the old stories, and yet you've done it to some degree already? But isn't it? Don't you find that interesting? I do. Isn't that amazing?
well, that's where I started off today of how far can I go with changing two things, which is my environment and my internal states. And both of those, I'm working on figuring out where to put my energies and what could actually
Yeah,
be achieved and what I need. And it's like, it doesn't feel like I'm coming far enough with either one. It feels like I'm
yeah,
coming
yeah,
along,
yeah.
but it's like, I don't know. I guess when I go to the forest and then I come back and I feel myself tensing up again, I'm like, ugh, why can't I stay there? So I guess it's just
Yeah,
a lot
yeah,
of
yeah.
sorrow that I'm not in a different place
Right. So
internally
that's
about,
that's the big question. Why can't you stay there? Or why
yeah,
can't you get there without going to the forest? Right? That's what
yeah,
I find really interesting.
mm-hmm,
And I kind of know the answer, but that's beside the point. It's irrelevant from a point of view of your actual experience. It's you discovering the answer that will allow it to change. You discover, but don't you have curiosity as to why don't you? I mean, all of the stuff that I've told you, if you were to if you were to be able to adopt it, experience it literally, your life would be entirely different. We wouldn't be having this conversation because you wouldn't be experiencing things you're experiencing. Yet that hasn't happened. So you're saying I can't figure it out. Well, you don't have to figure it out. I've figured it out for you. Just listen to me. But you can't, can you? Because the old stories have some kind of power, they have some kind of strength.
but also because you're saying that even in enlightenment, we don't get to stay in a certain state. There's ups and downs, and so maybe I can't get any better.
Well, I'll tell you what, I prefer my ups and downs to yours. From what I'm hearing, there are ups and downs, but they're relative. My ups and downs are probably nowhere near the peaks and troughs of yours. What I don't want you to get is this idea that you're going to be so wonderful that you can walk on water. You'll never be able to. That's the reality. And that's what I say, but maybe you maybe you will. I don't know. Anything's possible.
All right. So if you would be able to tell me two things that my brain would understand today, what would you say? Because you keep saying, I'm not getting it, I'm not getting it, I'm not listening. So tell me the two things you would most want me to hear that I'm not hearing.
Okay, so you asked for a couple of different things there. So if I was to say something that would change your life the quickest would be simply stop listening to the stories you tell yourself. Dismiss every single story that turns up about what things mean and don't get involved in the content of those stories. That would be the most definitive world changing event that could happen for you. But see, when I tell you that, I also imagine it's not possible. Why? Because your experience is that you do get lost in that stuff. The experience is that you say again and again and again and again and again, I'm responding to my environment. It's the
Mm-hmm.
temperature, it's the air pollution that I'm responding to.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I'm saying, no, you're responding partly to that, but mostly to the stories about what that means.
Mm-hmm.
So what can I say to you that would enable you to have a recognition every time you get lost in a story about what it means, that you are lost in a story about what it means? The recognition of that. How can we make that happen? No, you don't need to do anything more. You don't need to that does see this again, this is part of your belief system. The next step is, oh, if I recognize that I'm doing that, I've got to stop myself from doing that. Well, guess what? Trying to stop it only strengthens it. But you can't imagine that just recognizing it will cause it to weaken and fall away. Can you imagine that? Just seeing it
Yeah.
happening?
Yeah.
Okay. So then let's make that the most specific thing that can happen. Watching for the realization that will turn up every time you get lost in a story that says it means this or it means that. This experience means this. These conditions mean something, right? Every time you get into that story, I want an alarm bell to go off and for you to go, there you go. I was lost in it.
So if my body's contracting and I say, oh, it's because there's pollution, what part should I drop of that?
The story about the pollution, not the recognition that your body's contracting. Go with that because that's actually happened. Even though it might have happened because of an unconscious story about what it means. But regardless, right, the by the time you realize that, but what also is of value is that body contraction might be the avenue for recognizing that you're lost in the story. So you might be lost in the story and not realize it until the body contraction shouts out to you that you are.
And do you think with my genes, it's ever possible that my body won't contract against heat or noise or pollution?
Eventually, yes.
Mm-hmm. So to me,
Not
that's walking on water, but you're saying that's possible for
yes,
my
yes, it
system.
is. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. But we don't expect an instant fix for that. What
Mm-hmm.
we expect is a progressive improvement.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. I hear what you're saying. I'm not going to go from 100 to zero, but I might go to 99. That I can
Yep,
imagine. So,
yep, yep, yep. And 98 will become 98 quickly, and then it'll become 95, and then 90, and then 80, and then 70, and so on.
Yeah.
And it'll never probably get to zero, but we'll get it down to the point where it's not running your life.
Hmm. Yeah. All right. That makes sense. I'm just so impatient with the progress that any
Yeah,
progress I have, I'm
yeah,
like, it's not enough. It's not enough. And then I can't, enjoy it. I'm in sorrow at the contrast to how it usually is. And yeah,
yeah. And especially when you've had a good experience, you know what you've lost when you're in these
exactly.
bad ones. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I get that too.
I wish I could be more positive and just be like, oh, yay, I had a minute of happiness in 3 weeks of misery. But um, yeah, I'm more focused on the
Yeah,
where I don't succeed. But yeah.
yeah. You'll get there. You'll get better at that
Hmm.
stuff, you know.
Hmm.
And if I could get you at about 50 seconds into that minute of happiness and ask you what it felt like when you were really bad, you probably couldn't remember what it felt like. You could only remember that it happened.
Hmm.
So that the brain works in a really weird way when it comes to remembering painful or unpleasant circumstances.
Hmm.
Hmm. But I love your persistence, and even though you might not feel you're patient, well, you must be patient to still be going at it. So good stuff. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your persistence and patience with me too, Vince. It's really, really invaluable. And
good stuff. Yeah.
all right. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Tammy. Anything valuable in that for you, Jack?
Yeah, I think so. Also, hi. Um, the I'm optimistic that it'll turn up as a question is when you were like, isn't it interesting that the device hasn't permeated? I was like, huh, you could say the same thing for me. Um, that is curious because I do trust that you know what you're talking about. Um, so that's curious. And then the other one, it was is the fact that I don't feel very patient, but like I've stuck with this too. So that was also an interesting. It's like there is something on there. Um, yeah, good stuff though. Um, Life showed me some cool stuff the last couple days. Um, it was first. There's a girl that's on my dance team that I've got to spend a good amount of time with the last few months, and she's like this outwardly presenting. She's like the sweetest, happiest person I've ever met. Um, And recently she revealed to me, she was like, I have OCD. And she's keeping in mind she's so nice and kind. She's like, yeah, I have these thoughts that are like I'm a psychopath deep down. And when she said that, I was like, oh, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And then I was like, wait a minute. I have that same thing. So that was kind of funny. Like seeing that it's something that happens to like real people and that it's like from the outside, I can kind of feel sympathy towards it, um, and that it's really so silly is the other one. So that was part of it. And then today, my roommate or housemate, he's potentially getting into a relationship. He's not actually in it. He's a, th- 100 years in the future thinking about all the things that could happen. Um, And the biggest thing is he's just like, I don't know, I don't know what's gonna happen, I don't know how to do all these things. Like, essentially, it's so uncertain. And for the first time, I was like, oh, I feel like that's what Vince feels like when he watches me, because, well, I guess I don't know, but it's it was like, yeah, you just need to sit with that because you can't know. It's and it's probably good for you also. Um, yeah, it was just like two cases of seeing me from the outside. I didn't do anything to make it
Mm.
happen. I guess I participated in conversations, but not for the goal of making realization, I guess. Um, and I was like, wow, that so weird.
Mm. So, what was it like seeing yourself from the outside?
The biggest thing that came away was like yet again of like this stuff can get kind of taken care of for me, not by me. Um, like today, the conversation with my roommate happened after a whole day of like the same old annoying suffering stuff, and then boom, out of nowhere, it's like, oh yeah, that's there's what I would call insight or more clarity, um, and I didn't do a thing. So just a little bit more trust. It builds.
So, did you put much importance or value on that it happened without you doing a thing?
Yeah, I mean, okay. Let's see. Value importance. No, I just thought it was remarkable and that it shows me again that it's possible.
Mm.
I didn't weigh it like more than the stuff I've maybe come to on my own or because even the stuff I come to on my own is often like more of a release rather than something I really earned or did, if that makes sense. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, this was just so clearly like, oh yeah, I was being shown this, maybe shown, I'm not sure if shown, it felt like I was being shown by some force, but
Yeah,
it was just
yeah,
so blatantly obvious that it wasn't me. Um, whereas other
yeah,
stuff I've long said it is me.
yeah. So, what if you were to say, what if you were to describe it as, on one hand, you could say, well, life showed it to me. And then you, on the other hand, you could kind of go halfway and say, well, I was shown, and I don't really know what by. And then what if you were to say, I showed myself?
Thought you were gonna say that. I don't get the eye stuff. Is where I'm.
Yeah.
Uh,
So it's a bit of a tricky one because when I say I showed myself, I really mean Jack showed you, not a self. I wasn't. They were only the words I used,
yeah,
but that somehow internal processes revealed.
yeah. Okay, I could bite on that. And yeah, and that's not so far from where I think I was at.
Right. Yeah.
One thing I was going to bring up today is I'm still doing some of the LU stuff, and my guide for the first time brought up this word awareness, and he's like, "What comes first, the awareness or the object of awareness, like the laptop or the sound?" And I came to that there's always some awareness happening before any before I come on along and say I'm aware or I am typing or like awareness of typing or can't even really call it that. And it was kind of beautiful and then suffering kicked back in, but I don't know, I just want to bring it up
Yeah, yeah,
because it was my
yeah,
first encounter with this awareness thing.
yeah, yeah. It's a good one. Yeah, yeah. So if I was asked that when you said it, what came to mind was that awareness exists before the object of awareness happens does not make any sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah.
I would say they both happened at exactly the same time because they're the same thing, right? So there is no
Let me
such thing
maybe
as awareness.
could I clarify maybe?
Yeah. Yeah, so just let me have a ramble about it a bit
Sure.
because you know
Fine.
that's right. So you can't bottle awareness, right? It's an abstract noun. It's not a concrete noun, right? So it's a concept, but so it's purely language that makes it seem like a thing. Awareness. There is awareness there. So it'd be much more accurate to say awareing happened, right? That's a verb. Awareing is a process or a happening, if you like. And can there be awareing without an object to be aware of? Well, that'd be a philosophical thing that I wouldn't want to get into because I can't imagine a good outcome of that philosophical argument. But what I can say is that if awareing happens, there is an object involved. So they both happen at the same time. But then I would say, but the object is only an apparent object. It's not an actual object. So what I really am becoming aware of is an interpretation I've got of what's happening. And the object and the awareing are both an experience. That's the same experience. But I get where he's coming from, whoever he is, the guide who's saying that. And what he's trying to do is to say that it's better that you identify as awareness than as a self. And it's purely a temporary staging post that you might adopt on the way to recognizing that you're not awareness, just the same as you're not anything. So, I mean, I might have fucked it up for him by going going into this for you like this. But did what I say make any sense to you?
Well, first I could say that the cool thing about LU is he's never gonna let me just say what you said and accept it, right? Like he'll make me actually figure it out. So you're not gonna mess up anything. But um, I think it did resonate. In fact, I think it was pretty close to what I was already saying, except for when you called out that it was apparent objects with simultaneously awareing and all that. That the apparent objects part made kind of cut out
Hmm.
some of the
Yeah, well, that's
delusions.
something that I wouldn't expect you to experience just yet, but you will.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. It doesn't matter.
But it depends, you know, on lots of things. I mean, having a um, in-depth discussion about these things, I would see as a good thing to have with your guide. So if your guide thinks that he is awareness, I'd pull him up on that.
Yep. Yep.
Uh, I don't imagine he does. Yeah. But this is not very far removed from what koans are about, and that is for you to help you appreciate that there's nothing substantial that you can put your hooks into to say that's what I am.
Okay. Yeah. I don't really know what I am. I guess I don't want to jump the gun and say that I am not, or that there's.
Hmm. Well, you can't say you're not because you don't know. But
Yeah.
it's really good that you can't say you are for the same
Yeah.
reason because you don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what I kind of get tripped up is like, there's clearly seeing, and I don't think that's ever going to go away. I guess it could,
Yeah, yeah.
but
No, that's no. I don't have any argument with seeing. That's a
yeah.
verb, right? That's a
So, like,
happening, a
something's there.
verb. Yeah, yeah.
So, something's there. So then it comes down to what is being seen or perceived that's not supposed to be there or that's inaccurate. Like, I don't really trust my direct experience because I have the sense that there's an illusion somewhere that I'm not.
Yeah.
What I'm
So,
really saying is I don't know. Um,
yeah. Yeah. So, well, that defines things for us rather nicely. What 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 seeing is a, a process, right? So we can look at the eyes, a sense organ that we use for seeing, and when we are seeing, there's nothing static in that. What's happening is that light's hitting the eyes, getting transferred into nerve signals, which go up to the brain, and the brain generates an experience that we might call an image or with a seeing of something. But that's created in the brain. That's a creation, right, that comes in with the biological effects of light hitting the eyes and then the way it works through to the brain, right? So there's that seeing process, right? But what we talked about is a story, it's a story because we don't experience light and nerve and brain. We don't experience any of those. We experience seeing, just an act of seeing. Now, included in the act of seeing is something that's being seen. But that's also just part of the experience. To presume that it's something actual is a presumption,
yeah, but it
right?
doesn't need to be
It's a reasonable
actual.
presumption from a certain perspective, but it's not a reasonable presumption to say that what I am seeing is what is actually there.
Okay, but so I've heard you say versions of that a lot, but I kind of come back to is like who who cares if it's actual or not? It's still all I know and interact with and can see, and same with the
Absolutely.
suffering
Yep.
and all that, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. And that's fine. That's perfect. That's a perfectly reasonable thing to say. Yeah. So recognizing that the process of seeing includes the meaning that the brain gives to that experience.
Yeah.
And that's based on all
In
sorts
fact,
of
I've
things.
seen weird versions of that where like I'll see a flash of something that my brain interprets as like danger, and then oh no, it's actually a log. Like I can see
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah,
the visual transition. It's kind of cool.
yeah,
So I know that like I'm sure a lot of what I can be seeing could be dramatically colored.
yeah.
Um,
And that's normal. And that from one perspective, that's perfectly reasonable. But from the perspective of recognizing what is actual, and this is the rubber hitting the road stuff. What is actual is only unknown. Right?
so when you
Everything.
say recognizing what is actual, what does that even mean?
Well, it's meaningless in that we have no idea what anything actual is. We only have access to our interpretation of anything. Right?
Okay.
But the same thing comes back to who is doing the seeing. That is also conceptual, right? We can only assume from a logical conclusion that there is somebody there who is doing the seeing. I mean, you don't even know it's your eyes that are seeing. You can't see your eyes, can you? So, all right, here's
Yeah,
a
yeah,
good
yeah,
one.
yeah, yeah.
Here's a really good one. Same thing. The difference between concept and what is actual, right? If I say to you, with your left hand, touch your right hand and do it, right? And then you can say, okay, I've got a right hand and I've got a left hand. But what you've got is a sensation where they touched. How do
Yeah,
you know you've got a body? How do you know you've got a back to your head?
yeah. I mean, the body I have a harder time with because like I can see,
You can
I
see
can see
what?
colors
You can
suggest.
see a
Yeah,
hand. Yeah, all right. Let's not even go as far as colours and shapes. Let's say you can
yeah,
see a hand, but you can't see the back of your head. You can just imagine that the back of your head exists. And if you
yeah,
touch it, what have you got? You've got a sensation there, and you've got a sensation there.
yeah,
Right? And so what we do is we say, well, I've got a left hand and a right hand, a left foot and a right hand. I've got a leg and I've got a bum and I've got ears and I've got eyes and I've got a hair. And we say all of these things, but we can only experience one at a time. And every time we go to what we can't see, if we use our touch, we've only got sensation. If we can see it, right? I can see my hand. I've only got my hand because I can see it. Right? All I can see is my hand. I've got no awareness of my left little toe while I'm looking at my hand. So it's conceptual to assume, and quite reasonably so, that I've got all these bits that are joined to each other and they add up to a body.
yeah.
It's just a concept.
Got you.
Now it's
In
a very
fact, you
reasonable
had a
concept.
really you had a really good you had a meeting with I don't remember her name a few weeks ago where you were like, you see this, what do you see? And it's like I think they said a cup, and it's like, nope, you think a cup, but what you see, we gotta, you know.
Yeah, yeah. So we're not going to live in this place where we go, oh, that's just a concept, you know. Concepts are absolutely useful. Of course, it's useful to say you've got a body, but to recognize that it only exists as a body in concept, right, frees you from getting lost in thinking it's actual. And so
Okay.
once we get the difference between what is conceptual and what is actual, right, we're three-quarters of the way there. All of a sudden we go, oh, hang on, this I person, that's concept. That's not actual. That's just a concept, right? What's a concept? It's a story about something, right? And as soon as we recognize that I is a story, we can throw away choice and decision and responsibility and good and bad and right and wrong and all of that stuff goes out the window as well. Now, it has a place, and I'm not saying it doesn't have a place, but when it comes to the way you interact with the world, that frees us up incredibly just to recognize the difference. You don't have to live in it. You don't have to go around all the time saying, well, I haven't really got a body. You get into
Yeah.
trouble if you do that, don't you?
No,
Very
no.
quickly. Yeah. Yeah. But just to recognize it is all we need to do.
I'm tempted to say I don't have that recognition. Or if I do, because there was a point where we kind of looked at it and shifted a little bit. But even if I do, suffering's still happening, and I'm still not necessarily satisfied that I've like seen through self, or, and I don't really think I
Right.
have.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
So that's good. That's a valuable one, right? So instead of saying I've got to recognize that and then I won't suffer, come at it from a different angle and go, when I suffer, it's trying to show me something.
so
When
this
I
is one I've
suffer,
never really mentioned to you before, but I get caught in these like long sessions of learning where I have to learn all these lessons from suffering about how to be a better person or uh, dive through different questions and question assumptions and all that. And it's always so painful. So
mm,
like I don't want to be shown anything. I want to be
yeah,
done.
you want to be done. Yeah, of course, that's perfectly reasonable. Yeah. So what if the
Okay.
learning down, so we can reduce learning down to something much simpler than learning all of that, learning how to be whatever, because that still involves you doing stuff. What if what if what if the only thing suffering is trying to show you is how or where you're still believing there's a self running the show? If that's the
That
only
could
lesson,
track.
there's no other lesson. That's the only one that is worth doing. And when you
That would make
recognize that,
sense.
yeah,
There was there was a particularly bad night one weeks ago where I was like, man, this really sucks. So I went on to ChatGPT, which I almost never do, and I was like, do you have anything for this? And it gave me a koan. It was like, bring me this eye that you need to get rid of. And I was like, oh yeah, and that killed it instantly.
yeah,
Like, but even that, it's like I still think about the eye.
yeah.
I learn
And it's
about, you know,
that's perfectly reasonable. Just continue to do it, recognizing that it's conceptual. Don't try and stop doing it.
but I I don't just have this binary of conceptual, not conceptual. I can't just say like, oh yeah, that's conceptual. Clearly, obviously.
Well, here's a good test that you can use for that. Can it be bottled? Can a surgeon cut you open and find it? Can it be seen? Can it be held in your hand, can it be bottled? If it can't, it's concept.
I'm gonna fight you on that one just because
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, please do. Give me an example of something that can't be bottled. That's not a concept.
I don't think I will. That sounds like a trap. Um, okay, I see you're right. I'll just say this. When I'm going about my day, uh, and there's a good chance I'll get trapped in a mental conversation of, is this concept or not? Can I bottle this or not? I'll shoot you an email about that because that
Mm.
type of thing happens all the time,
Yeah, yeah,
where
yeah.
a new pointing gets turned into just another skewer.
Mm. Yeah. And recognize that going about your day in a normal day, you're going to use concept most of the time in a practical way. And there's no conflict with that. That's fine. That's what will happen. All I'm saying is there's value for you in recognizing that that's what's going on. You see, suffering is always comes from a concept. It doesn't come from anything actual. So once you pick up the difference between what is concept and what is actual, you lose suffering as well. But I guess, okay, so one of the things that comes to mind then is that what we say is that when we recognize something as conceptual, we have a different relationship to it to when we used to think it was actual. But you know that most of society wanders around believing that so much conceptual stuff is actual.
Yeah. I wanted to ask about the right and wrong stuff. Do
Hmm.
you remember last time I talked to you about being a person? Yeah. Have you noticed any of that in this conversation? That coming up?
No, no, I haven't. No, I can't think of any examples where that became
Or success
a
and failure, I think is more your terminology.
yeah, yeah, and they're much the same thing, aren't they? Yeah. There was some implication about that when you said, "I just want to be done with it. I just want it to be there." Like that's a bit of a
Interesting. Where are you seeing that? Yeah. Maybe success, sort of?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
achievement. Yeah. Well,
Interesting.
maybe that's my interpretation. Maybe you weren't saying that. Maybe because it could
No,
be
yeah.
you're just saying I want to be
Uh,
finished with it. Well, it's kind of
yeah.
a little bit like that, isn't it? But yeah, yeah,
I could buy your story. I'm not saying it's right. It has a ring of potential.
yeah. So test it out. That's the thing. Don't buy anything sight unseen. Go check it out. Make sure it works. It comes with a warranty. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure how I do what you're saying. How to do
Yeah, yeah. No, so a lot of it is you just try it out and see how it fits and discard what doesn't fit and come back and we'll have another go at it if necessary, whatever. I'm feeling pretty good about you. I reckon you're doing well for whatever that is worth. Maybe not much, but it's something.
Just just want to like pick your brain. I don't. I I can say that you've done a lot for me, and you do a lot for me. So thank you. And I guess there's not even a but.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you the same thing I told Tammy, and that is, yeah, I know what you mean. Thank you very much for that. But that's not what actually happens. What actually happens is you discover new stuff in yourself. It all comes from you, and you're the one that responds to it. So thank you.
No.
So there you go. Now let's get rid of the mutual admiration stuff, and yeah, you're supposed to laugh at that. That was a joke.
That's,
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
how did your this is it revelation show you all the other stuff? Because yeah, maybe how's not the better word, but like what's the connection there?
Yeah, yeah. A lot of it I can't really say. I do remember that when I was asked about a self, my initial response, and I'd never heard about the no self thing. That was never part of my seeking stuff. I never went to Liberation Unleashed before awakening. Um, but when I was asked about the no self, I immediately said, "That's just a bunch of stories." It was so obvious to me, and I don't know where it come from. It just turned up that way. It was just obvious. Now, a lot of the other things that I talk about, like the apparent object thing, and that was a realization that came considerably after that kind of stuff, where I started to recognize, and it was really the words I'm using just point at it, right? But it was to do with the recognition of my interpretation of everything. So that was apparent with the "this is it" thing, right? That there was this, the mosquito bite of seeking was the recognition that the scratching, the seeking, was scratching and seeking was about my interaction with what is present, what is current, what is here, with this, and this could be anything. Whatever this is just my interpretation of a current experience. So it was like that includes the potentiality of everything and anything.
Okay.
So whatever circumstances I'm in, I've got my interpretation of those circumstances.
Yeah, so why is my interpretation so bad? And like the question that comes up is like how to fix it. I don't think that's the right question, but
Yeah, but that's the inclination. I get that. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, partly too, because I'm saying I recognize that all I have is my interpretation. What I'm saying is that what it actually is, I don't know. I can't know. I've only got these human faculties, the sense organs, to take it in, and plus I've got a hard drive full of experiences that affect it, and so on. All of this is what interprets what actually it is, but I don't know what it actually is. I can only know my interpretation. Right? So consequently, not knowing it, right, recognizing that I can't know what is actual, also shouts out to me that, well, how can I judge it? How can I have an opinion about it? How can I see it as right or wrong, good or bad?
Well, because it hurts. Like it's like really painful.
Well, that's not about it. That's my experience.
Or say that. Could you? I'm sorry. Could you say that again?
Yeah, that was a bit obscure, wasn't it?
Or maybe I didn't hear you. I'm sorry. I might
Yeah,
not have
no,
heard
no,
fully.
no. Well, what hurts me is not what is actual. It's my interpretation of what is actual.
Well, that's your interpretation.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. That's my interpretation. So,
Okay.
well, implied in that also is, could it be interpreted differently? Well, of course it could. The person standing next to me is going to interpret it differently. The frog and the
Hmm.
dog and the cricket are also going to interpret it differently. Who knows what it? We don't know what it actually is. All we have is an interpretation.
Yeah.
So if there's no, I was going to say if there's no absolute there, well, there probably I'm only guessing that there is an absolute there. But if I only have an interpretation and I interpret it as good or bad, right or wrong, and the person next to me does it differently, who's right? It's just an opinion, isn't it?
Well, but forgetting all that, because I don't really think in those terms a lot, at least consciously. The sense of hurt or pleasant is much, 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 much more obvious for me.
Mm,
And
mm. Yep, yep, I get that. Yeah. But I'm not saying the situation gives me pleasure or pain. I'm saying my interpretation of it
your
gives me pleasure or
sorry,
pain.
your mic is your mic is or cut out on me. You said your interpretation of it gives you pleasure and pain.
Yes.
Okay. I could play with that. In fact, I kind of did the other day. There was there's been a couple times in the last few days where I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna tell a story that feels a little better, and
Yeah,
what do
play
I
with that.
know?
That's a good thing. Absolutely, play with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if my interpretation is giving me pain, the the thing is not to, this is the level of skill thing. It's not to say, well, I won't do that, but rather to say, isn't it interesting? What's going on? Why
Here's a
am I
thought.
giving myself pain? Yeah,
What is actual could be giving me pain, and I wouldn't know.
that's true.
I guess I don't know that there is an actual. I just or I'm using it like there's a thing. I don't know.
Mm.
I just
So
mean
it,
I
it
don't
maybe
really
it
know what's
gets,
causing the pain.
yeah. So there's an assumption here too that's not obvious, and that is that if I have an interpretation, or if it's the actual, whatever, that's giving me pain, what's the gain for me?
Yeah.
So if it's the flame that I've got my hand over that's causing pain, and I guess it would, Why am I doing it? Why have I got my hand there?
Wait, I feel like you're saying, in my mind, you're saying two very different things. Is one is I'm making a doing out of it, is what I interpreted the first part.
Yeah. But that wasn't the intention. It was, but
Okay.
it is kind of like that in a sense that if I presume that there is some gain, then I guess you could say yes, that would be a doing.
Oh, you said gain. I thought you said what's the game like?
No, gain,
What's the
as in,
play?
yeah, what's
Gain
the
for
ben?
me.
Yeah, there's a benefit,
Wait, okay, could you re-say what you were trying to say there then? Because I totally missed what.
right?
There's an
So
assumption.
if yes, there's an assumption that if it's painful, that there's some benefit to it.
Yeah, I guess I do assume that because I've been told that by you.
Yeah.
Or
So
maybe not
so
gain,
then
but it's an opportunity. How about that?
yeah, but let's not beat ourselves up over it. That's a no-win situation. Let's go. Isn't it interesting? I wonder what's happening. Now we might not come up with an answer, and that's fine. But an answer, it's an invitation for some more realization to present itself.
I'm sorry, what is interesting to you? Or, oh,
That I would have an interpretation that causes me pain
eh,
or suffering or whatever. Mm.
yeah, well, I'm still stuck on I just can't even, I can't even know.
No, and we can't know. That's right. It's going to be unconscious, isn't it? Almost for sure.
Or something, I don't, or, yeah. Like I don't know that it's my interpretation, and I don't know how I could know until it's revealed to me. Does that make
Well,
sense?
can you know that you can have anything other than an interpretation of anything?
It's a good question. I don't know. Uh,
See, the thing is that this
yeah, I
is
don't know.
really
I don't know.
yeah. So if we get into quantum physics a little bit, we can see that when you observe something, the mere fact that you're observing it changes it. Right? A la the double slit experiment. Right? If you watch it, if you measure it, it's different. If you don't, you don't know that it's different.
Okay.
What recently discovered is that you can not watch it and then recall it, and it will still be different. So it's doesn't it's so we're playing with a weird thing here with time as well. So it's like we kind of backdate the observation, even if we do it afterwards, but it still has the same effect. It's really weird, right? So then we might get into, does something exist without it being seen, measured, looked at, experienced? And now, can something exist without it being experienced?
I have no idea. Could be.
No, exactly. You've no idea. Yeah.
So what?
So
So
rather than say,
what?
can
Like,
we? Yeah, that's right. Perfect. So instead of saying, can we, let's say, is it possible for something to exist without being experienced? Well, the logical answer, a reasonable answer, is from my perspective, it's irrelevant. So consequently, only things that I experience exist for me. And I have no idea about what their state is when I'm not experiencing them. Maybe they don't exist. Maybe they exist in some other reality. Maybe they only exist for other people experiencing them or something else experiencing them. I don't know. Well, I don't know, but it's irrelevant. So when we come back to is relevance, and that is, for me, the only thing that exists are what I'm currently experiencing.
Yep, I'm with you. Yeah, yeah, I'm with you on that.
So the
Sorta.
Statue of Liberty exists as a concept, but that's all. And I can experience a concept just by thinking about it, but it's not impinging on any of my physical sense organs, is it? So it doesn't exist for me.
No, but we were kind of talking about earlier, like it doesn't have to. Like we live in a world of where concepts are
Yeah, yeah,
practical.
fine, and that's fine, and there's no conflict there. Let's not worry about. We're not trying to live in both worlds at once. We recognise that there's two separate worlds in a way,
Okay.
and one of them is your actual experience in life and your suffering, and the other one is that which most people live in, that we will operate in every time we socialise, every time we go to school, go to the shops, whatever.
This might be splitting hairs, but I thought the suffering was in the concepts or
No, it's in the
in yeah,
response to
in
the
the thought.
concept. It's in the response to that. Because the suffering is physical, isn't it? The suffering is actual,
I guess so.
but it's a response to that which is not actual.
That was my guide reminded me today, or he told a story about himself. He was like, I had an abandonment wound from childhood, so every time my girlfriend would get angry at me, I would respond to the abandonment wound instead of what she was saying. And that
Yeah,
made me think of what if I'm responding to some suffering instead of what's actual? Or I don't really know, it wasn't clear, but something kind of like that, and it
yeah,
temporarily
yeah,
cut suffering for like a little bit.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Well, that yeah, that's a good one. Because I would say that pretty well all your suffering is going to come from those old wounds.
yeah,
And we don't have to purge them. We just have to recognize them as old wounds.
yeah. I'm not fully bought into the whole inner child old wound stuff because it's
That's pretty conceptual, isn't it?
yeah. And we've talked about like I can get on board with concepts, so I'm past that. But like I don't have a whole lot of memories of that period. I don't
Yeah.
see,
Now
I've
here's the
never
thing,
recognized
though.
the wound.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you're not going to recognize it. It's going to be unconscious. You're not going to have a memory of it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a wound, right? Because as soon as you had a memory of it, you would be able to put it into context. And that's the problem, is that the context that you had when you got the wound was naive and limited. And so consequently, it's that feeling of guilt that we get as a child, that it must be my fault that whatever's going on. And then the feeling of shame and so on. And then we get sophisticated in our methods of avoiding it. And so again, they don't exist as something tangible. They only exist as potential until they get triggered. And when they get triggered, and that's all happens at an unconscious level, when they get triggered, then we have a response to that. And part of the response to that is to avoid it. And that's where most of our suffering comes from, in that avoidance behavior. And you can see easily, if you follow that line of that story, you can see that the the benefit from the suffering is that it keeps you away from that which we imagine is much worse. which is the original trauma stuff. Feeling abandoned in the case of your guide. I mean, feeling abandoned is not just feeling abandoned. That's fucking survival stuff. You know, as a herd member, if you get abandoned, you die. So when babies get abandoned, it's a big deal. And when mum yells at us, that triggers that same thing. Doesn't matter what it's about, but just getting that disapproval puts us on the thing of maybe we'll get kicked out of the herd and we'll be on the outer and we'll die because we need the herd, we need the pack, we need the group to survive.
Yeah.
It's pretty primitive stuff,
Yeah.
and
There's
we've still
been a
got
number of
yeah.
fears.
You're going.
There's been a number of things where when I looked into it, the fear was of death, but like I had to chain it back. And it's like I want to say I'm not scared of death. So it was a weird one, like why am I scared of death? But
Mm.
um,
Yeah, yeah. Well, it can be both, you know. You can be scared of death and not scared of death at the same time. I know that sounds weird, but
no,
believe
I
me,
believe
that's
it.
yeah,
I
yeah.
believe it. Eh,
We have this. We don't
yeah.
have to be binary in our responses for sure. Yeah. So we've still got this part at the top of our spine, at the back of our head there, that we call that flight, fright, freeze center, and that's kind of like comes back to a really primitive survival thing. And if that gets triggered, we do survival stuff. We'll fight, or we'll flee, or we'll freeze. We'll do what animals do, depending. So if you're cornered, you'll fight for sure. Or if you can run away, you'll run away. Or if you can't run away, you'll get really still and hope that they don't see you. Yeah. And people that get brought up in an authoritarian environment, with a boss in the family who runs the show and says it's got to be like this and it's got to be like that, that center is activated. That center has predominance. The frontal lobes, where we make cognitive decisions, it has a secondary place in a survival environment. So all those right-wing arseholes, they've been brought up like that. That's part of their brain that works a lot harder than the other parts of their brain.
Now that you mentioned that, I don't know why I feel so strongly to just tell you stories, but it's I'm reminded of multiple times where like I'm like suffering, 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 and then all of a sudden, like or before I say that, suffering, suffering, I'm doing all my trying to respond, and all of a sudden it's like there's a relaxing that I had no part of at all, and I'm like, huh, that's weird. It's it really is almost like they're out of sync, or I'm dealing with one part that's I don't know, but they're
Yep, that's pretty good, isn't
no.
it? Isn't it?
I mean, it's good that something's taking care of me that I don't have to do. That's nice. It's not good that I'm screwing it up or otherwise out of sync with that part. I don't really know. Sync is,
Yeah,
I'm
you'd
making
like to be
that.
able to
That's kind of how
control
I.
that part, eh?
No, well, okay, maybe that's an idea. I was more thinking the part that I call me just seems woefully out of it's not well balanced with the good part.
Mm.
Because or really all I'm saying is I don't like that I suffer, and it seems like there's something there that knows, but they're not on the same page.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But they're getting more synchronized, I think. Yeah.
So, okay,
Thank you, Jack.
thank you,
I enjoy talking to you. I like the way your mind works. Good stuff.
thank you.
Mm.
It's weird you can say that while also recognizing that like I don't have any choice in how my mind works. Which
Yeah,
I know because of you.
yeah.
Ugh.
But I don't have any choice in what I enjoy either. There
Oh yeah,
you
yeah.
go. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to wind up now. Thank you.
Me too.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Tammy.
Bye,
All
guys.
right, bye,
Thank
Tammy.
you.
Bye.
Bye.